A letter was written against you, sealed, sent, and aimed directly at your life, and I intercepted it before it reached your door. Do not scroll past this. What I am about to tell you is not a warning about something coming. It is a declaration about something that already happened, something that was stopped, cancelled, and permanently removed from the delivery route of your life while you were still bracing for its arrival. You have been dreading something, I know. There is a weight sitting in your chest that has no name, a low hum of anxiety that does not attach to a specific event, but hovers over everything like a shadow cast by something you cannot see. You have been waking up with it, going to sleep with it, carrying it through your days like a sealed envelope you are afraid to open, because you already sense the damage written inside. But the envelope never arrived, and it never will. I reached into the space between the sender and your doorstep, and I pulled it out of transit, not redirected, not delayed, removed, permanently. The words that were written to damage you, the plan that was formed, the consequence that was building, the situation that was designed to land on your life at the exact moment you were least equipped to absorb the impact. It has been cancelled by a hand that moves faster than anything sent against you. It is already done. And I brought you to this message, not to warn you, but to relieve you, because the dread you are carrying is for a delivery that was intercepted before your prayer was even finished. Stay here. What I reveal next is what was actually written in that letter, and why I refused to let it reach you. Type intercepted if you have been carrying a nameless dread, a feeling that something was coming against you, and God just told you it has already been stopped. Before we go any further, I need to tell you something that genuinely surprised me. A neuroscientist discovered a simple 7-second technique that actually rewires how your brain processes thoughts. And when I tried it, the difference was almost unsettling. My focus sharpened, ideas started connecting faster, and that mental fog, gone. This isn't manifestation nonsense. It's backed by real brain science, and thousands of people are already seeing results. But here's the catch. Only 5 spots are left. If something inside you is saying, try it, trust that instinct. Click the link in the description or pinned comment before it's too late. The letter was closer to arriving than you realize, and I pulled it from the route at the last possible moment. I need you to understand how precise the interception was. This was not a general act of protection applied broadly over your life like a blanket. This was targeted, surgical, a specific letter carrying a specific threat aimed at a specific area of your life. And my hand entered the delivery system at the exact coordinates where the letter would have crossed from the invisible realm into your visible reality. It was hours away from reaching you, and you felt it. That heaviness that intensified recently, the dread that sharpened from a background hum into something your body physically responded to. That was not anxiety, that was proximity. Your spirit was detecting the approaching delivery, the way an animal senses a storm before the sky changes. You could not name it. You could not see it. But something inside you knew that something was moving toward you with intent. And then I moved faster. This message is not for everyone carrying general worry. This is for the one person whose dread is specific, attached to a situation, a relationship, a decision, a consequence, a confrontation, or a result that they have been quietly terrified is about to land. You know exactly what I am referring to. The thing you have been losing sleep over. The scenario you have been rehearsing in your mind. The outcome you have been bracing for, with every muscle in your body clenched against an impact you believed was inevitable. It was not inevitable. It was interceptable. And I intercepted it. The sender does not know the letter was removed. They believe it is still in transit. They are still expecting the damage to land. But the delivery system they trusted has been compromised by a God who monitors every piece of mail addressed to his children. What I reveal next is who sent the letter and why they chose this exact moment to send it. Type removed if the dread you have been carrying just lost its grip, because you now know that what was coming against you has already been pulled from the root by God's own hand. I have been monitoring your mail long before this letter was ever written. Not just the obvious threats, not just the attacks that announce themselves with visible hostility and clear return addresses. I have been reading the invisible correspondence that moves through the spiritual realm toward your life. Letters you never see, messages you never receive, deliveries that were cancelled so far from your door that you lived your entire life without knowing they were ever sent. You have been protected more times than you have been aware of. I watched the sender compose this particular letter. I saw the ink touch the page. I read every word as it was being written, the intention behind it, the timing calculated into it, the specific damage it was designed to inflict upon the specific area of your life where you are most vulnerable right now. The sender studied you. They identified the crack, and they wrote the letter to land precisely in that crack, with enough force to split it open. But they did not know I was reading over their shoulder. I need you to understand how personally I take the protection of your life. This is not automated. There is no system running in the background that generically filters threats from reaching my children. I am personally involved. My eyes scan every letter addressed to you. My hands intercept every delivery that carries destruction. My authority overrides every sender who believes their words have the power to reach what I have chosen to shield. You are not generally protected. You are specifically guarded. And I did not bring you to this message because you need to be more vigilant about threats. I brought you here because the vigilance you have been maintaining, the constant scanning of the horizon for danger, the exhausting work of bracing for an impact you cannot see, that vigilance is no longer necessary for this particular threat. The letter is gone. My hand already removed it. What I need to show you next is the weight the dread has been placing on your body, and why the removal of this letter changes more than you think. Type guarded if you are realizing right now that God has been personally reading every threat addressed to your life and canceling the ones that were never meant to reach you. I know what the dread has been doing to your body when no one is watching. You carry it in places that medical language cannot fully describe. Not in your muscles exactly, deeper, in the layer between your thoughts and your nervous system, where unnamed fear converts itself into physical sensation. The tightness in your chest that appears without provocation. The shallow breathing you do not notice until someone asks you a question, and you realize you have to force a full inhale before you can answer. The jaw that clenches during sleep, because your body is bracing for impact, even when your mind has temporarily shut down. The dread has been living in your body rent-free, and it has been costing you everything. I saw the night you lay in the dark running scenarios, not just one, dozens, your mind cycling through every possible version of the threat, every angle it could arrive from, every way it could damage you, every response you might need, and every response you might not have. You were rehearsing a catastrophe that was addressed to you, but was never going to arrive. And the rehearsal itself was doing damage that the actual letter never got the chance to do. The fear of the letter became its own letter. That is what the enemy counted on. The sender knew that even if the delivery was intercepted, the dread of the delivery would do its own work. The anticipation of destruction is a weapon that does not require the actual destruction to land. It works by occupying your mind, hijacking your peace, consuming the energy that would have been spent on living, and converting it into the full-time job of waiting for something terrible to arrive. You have been working that job for weeks, maybe longer. and I watched you clock in every morning, scanning the horizon, checking the mail, refreshing the circumstances of your life, looking for evidence that the threat had arrived. Each day it did not come. You did not feel relief. You felt increased dread, because a letter that has not yet arrived feels more dangerous than one that already has. The waiting was the weapon, and I am ending the waiting right now. The loneliest part of carrying the dread is that you could not explain it to anyone without sounding irrational. You tried once, maybe twice. You opened your mouth to describe the weight, and heard yourself saying words that sounded vague even to your own ears. I just feel like something bad is coming. I cannot explain it, but something is not right. And the person listening nodded politely and offered a response that was kind but completely inadequate, because they were responding to a general worry, and you were describing a specific spiritual detection that your vocabulary was not built to articulate. So you stopped telling people and carried it alone. That silence made the dread heavier, because dread that is shared is distributed, but dread that is private compounds. Every day you held it without speaking it, the weight doubled. Not because the threat was growing, but because the isolation of carrying an invisible weight without witness or validation created its own gravity. You began to question yourself. Am I making this up? Am I being dramatic? Is this anxiety or is this real? It was real, and you were not being dramatic. What your spirit was detecting was an actual letter, written with actual intent, carrying actual words designed to produce actual damage in your actual life. The detection system I installed in you was functioning perfectly. Your spirit was doing exactly what it was designed to do, alerting you to incoming danger, the way a radar detects an approaching object before it becomes visible to the naked eye. Your radar was not malfunctioning. Your radar was accurate. But here is the part that the radar could not show you. The radar detected the letter in transit, but it could not detect the interception. It could sense the approach, but it could not sense the removal, which means your alarm system has been running continuously against a threat that no longer exists, burning energy, stealing sleep, generating dread for a delivery that was pulled from the route before your radar could register the cancellation. I am updating your radar right now. The signal is clear. The skies are empty. The letter is gone. Type detected if your spirit has been sensing something coming that you could not prove or explain to anyone. And God just confirmed that your detection was accurate, but the threat has already been removed. The dread you carried was never a sign that you lacked faith. It was a sign that your spiritual senses are sharper than you have been giving them credit for. I need to correct a narrative that has been compounding your pain. You have been telling yourself that a person with real faith would not feel this level of anxiety about the future, that a person who truly trusted God would not lie awake rehearsing catastrophes, that the dread itself was evidence of a spiritual deficiency, a gap in your armor caused by insufficient prayer or inadequate belief. That narrative is wrong, and it has been punishing you unfairly. The dread was not a faith failure, it was a detection success. Your spirit was picking up accurate intelligence about a real threat, moving through real channels toward your real life. The problem was never your faith. The problem was that your spirit could detect the sending, but not the interception, could sense the letter leaving the sender's hand, but could not sense my hand pulling it from the root. You were reading half the data, and half the data looked terrifying. The season of anxiety you just walked through served a purpose I did not design, but chose to redeem. Every night you spent wrestling with the dread, when I saw your spirit was exercising a detection capacity that most people never develop. You were sharpening a radar system through sustained engagement with a threat. And even though the engagement was painful, the sensitivity it produced in your spiritual awareness, something I am going to use in your next season. Your dread trained your discernment, not efficiently, not comfortably, but effectively. And the timing of the interception, the reason I did not cancel the letter the moment it was written, was not negligence. The letter needed to enter the transit system for me to legally intercept it. A letter that exists only as intention cannot be cancelled. A letter that has been written, sealed, and sent has entered a jurisdiction where my authority to intervene is absolute. I waited for the sender to send it. Then I removed it with the full authority of heaven behind my hand. The cancellation is permanent, and it is legal. Something has already shifted in the atmosphere around your life, and I need you to tune into it. Within the last 48 hours, a lightness appeared. Brief, almost undetectable, sandwiched between two waves of the familiar dread. You felt it for maybe 3 seconds, a moment where the weight on your chest decreased by a fraction, and something inside you whispered, "Maybe it is going to be okay." Then the dread rushed back in and smothered the whisper before you could hold on to it. That 3-second window was the interception completing. Your spirit registered the exact moment the letter was pulled from the root. It was that brief lift, that momentary exhale, that flash of irrational peace that appeared without cause and disappeared before you could examine it. You dismissed it. You had to, because trusting a 3-second feeling over weeks of sustained dread felt reckless. But the 3 seconds were telling the truth. The weeks were echoing a threat that no longer existed. I have been working behind the dread in ways the dread itself prevented you from perceiving. While your mind was consumed with rehearsing the impact, my hand was dismantling the delivery system that was carrying the letter toward you, removing intermediaries, redirecting channels, closing routes that the sender assumed were open and operational. The postal system the enemy trusted has been compromised by heaven, and what is shifting now is not just the removal of one letter. It is the restructuring of the entire delivery infrastructure that was being used to send threats toward your address. I am not just intercepting this letter. I am dismantling the route so that future letters from this sender cannot travel the same path. The protection is not temporary. It is architectural. The dread is going to begin dissolving, not because you talked yourself out of it, but because the source it was responding to has been eliminated, and a radar with nothing to detect eventually powers down on its own. What I reveal next is what was actually written in the letter, and why reading it now from the safety of its cancellation will set you free from the dread permanently. Type dissolving if you felt brief, explainable moment of peace recently, and you now realize that was the exact moment God intercepted what was coming against you. Let me tell you what was written in the letter, because you deserve to know what was cancelled on your behalf. The letter contained a timing, not just a threat, a schedule. The sender did not write a vague intention of harm. They wrote a specific sequence of events designed to unfold in a specific order at a specific moment, calculated to hit you at the precise point where your resources would be lowest and your ability to respond would be most compromised. The precision was deliberate, and it was personal. The first line of the letter targeted your peace, not your circumstances, your internal peace. The opening move was designed to introduce a disruption so sudden and so disorienting that your mind would be knocked off its axis before you even understood what was happening. The sender knew that a person without peace makes decisions from panic, and decisions made from panic create the very damage that the letter intended to deliver. The attack was going to use your own reactions as its weapon. The second sections targeted your relationships, specific ones. The letter contained a sequence that would have introduced misunderstanding between you and someone you depend on, not through dramatic betrayal, but through subtle misalignment. A word taken wrong, a silence interpreted incorrectly, a small fracture that the sender knew would grow under pressure because the relationship was already carrying the weight of your stressed season. The damage would have looked natural. That was the cruelest part. And the third section, the one that would have arrived last, targeted your faith. Not your belief in God generally, your belief that God was specifically protecting you. The letter was designed to end with an event so precisely aimed at your deepest vulnerability that your conclusion would have been God saw this coming and did not stop it. That conclusion was the final sentence of the letter, and it was a lie written to look like evidence. I cancelled the entire document, every line, every sequence, every calculated move. The timing has been disrupted. The schedule has been voided. And the sender is still waiting for results that will never arrive. What I tell you next is why I refuse to let this specific letter reach you, and what it reveals about what I am bringing into your life that required this level of protection. The reason the letter was sent now, at this specific moment in your life, is because something is about to arrive at your door that the sender was trying to prevent you from being in position to receive. This is what you have been missing. The dread convinced you that the threat was about destruction. It was not. The threat was about interception, but in reverse. The enemy was trying to intercept your blessing the same way I intercepted his letter. He saw what was being prepared for you. He read the label on the package heaven was addressing to your life, and he wrote his letter with one objective: land the damage before the blessing arrives, so that the viewer is too broken, too depleted, or too displaced to receive what God is sending. The letter was not about destroying you. It was about disqualifying you from receiving. And that tells you something critical about what is coming. The size of the threat is always proportional to the size of what it is trying to prevent. A small blessing does not require a coordinated, multi-layered letter with a calculated timeline. What the enemy wrote against you was sophisticated, which means what I am sending toward you is significant enough to warrant that level of opposition. Your blessing required protection, and the interception of the letter was that protection. I need you to feel how close you are right now. The letter has been cancelled. The route has been dismantled. The sender's schedule has been voided, and the only delivery still in transit toward your address is the one I sent, the one that carries your name in my handwriting, sealed with my authority, traveling through channels the enemy cannot access or compromise. Your package is on its way, and there is nothing left standing between it and your door. The dread that was occupying the space in your chest where anticipation is supposed to live, that dread is being evicted right now, and what is replacing it is the expectation of someone who just learned that the threat was cancelled and the blessing was not. The next thing I speak over you is the moment the blessing arrives, and what it feels like to open a package from heaven with hands that are no longer shaking. Type cleared if you just realized that the enemy's letter was never about destroying you. It was about blocking what God is delivering. And the path is now completely clear. God just cancelled what was coming against you. It is already done. And I need you to let those words reach the place where the dread has been living. Not your mind. Your mind has been processing worst-case scenarios for weeks, and it will take time to reprogram. I am speaking to the deeper place, the part of your nervous system that has been clenched against impact, the part of your chest that has been holding a breath it forgot it was holding, the part of your spirit that detected the letter in transit and has been standing guard at the door every day, waiting for the knock that was never going to come. The knock is not coming. The letter was destroyed. I did not delay it. I did not reroute it to a later date. I did not file it for future delivery. I took the letter every word, every intention, every calculated sequence, and I cancelled it with an authority that the sender does not possess the power to override. The cancellation is not pending. It is not conditional. It is not dependent on your faith reaching a certain level or your prayers hitting a certain frequency. It is done, completed, executed by the only hand in existence that has jurisdiction over what reaches you and what does not. Nothing the sender wrote will ever touch your life. This is the moment the dread loses its power, not because you convinced yourself to stop worrying, not because you recited enough promises to overpower the anxiety, because the actual source of the dread, the real letter, the real threat, the real delivery that your spirit was accurately detecting, has been physically removed from existence by a God who does not negotiate with the enemy's postal system. He overrides it. You have been carrying the weight of a letter that no longer exists. The dread was real because the threat was real, but the threat is no longer real. And a radar detecting an object that has been removed from the sky has no reason to keep sounding its alarm. The alarm can stop now. The skies are clear. The letter is cancelled. And the God who cancelled it is the same God looking at you right now saying, "It is already done. You can exhale." The cancellation does not just remove the letter. It reverses everything the dread was doing to you while the letter was in transit. This is what most people do not understand about divine interception. When God cancels a threat, He does not simply prevent the future damage. He restores the damage the anticipation already caused. Because the enemy's strategy was never just the letter itself. It was the shadow the letter cast over your life during transit. The weeks of dread, the stolen sleep, the hijacked peace, the relationships that absorbed the tension you carried, the decisions you postponed because you were too afraid of what was coming to move forward with confidence. All of that is being restored, not eventually, now. The energy the dread consumed is being returned to your system in real time. You are going to feel it as a sudden surplus, a lightness that seems disproportionate to your circumstances, because your circumstances have not changed yet, but the invisible weight that was pressing against them has been permanently removed. Your body is going to release tension it has been holding for weeks, not because you decided to relax, because the thing your body was bracing against no longer exists. Your body already knows. Give it permission to respond. And the cancelled letter creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond the immediate threat. Every secondary consequence that was attached to the letter, every domino that would have fallen if the first impact had landed, has also been cancelled. The argument that would have followed the initial damage, the financial strain that would have compounded the emotional hit, the relational fracture that would have widened under the pressure of the crisis, none of it will happen. Because the first domino was removed from the sequence. The entire chain reaction has been dismantled. Not just the first event. I did not perform a partial cancellation. I cancelled the letter and every future it was designed to produce. Your timeline has been scrubbed of every consequence that was attached to the threat, and what remains is a clean path, unmarked by the damage that was intended and unobstructed by the debris that would have followed. Your future just changed, and you did not have to do anything except be loved by a God who moves before the letter arrives. Type scrubbed if you are realizing that God did not just cancel the threat. He canceled every consequence, every ripple, and every domino that would have fallen, and your entire future just shifted. Let me show you what your life looks like now that the delivery route has been cleared, and the only mail arriving at your door is from me. The first thing that changes is the morning. You are going to wake up and notice the absence of the dread before you notice anything else. Not its reduction, its absence. The space in your chest that has been occupied by nameless fear is going to feel hollow at first, not empty in a painful way. Hollow the way a room feels when heavy furniture has been removed, suddenly spacious, suddenly full of possibility, suddenly available for something new to be placed there. I am placing something new there, and it is the opposite of what the letter carried. Where the letter carried a timing for destruction, I am installing a timing for blessing. Where the letter scheduled a sequence of damage, I am scheduling a sequence of restoration. The same precision the enemy used to design the attack I am now using to design the recovery, and my precision exceeds his, the way the architect's blueprint exceeds the vandal's spray paint. Your schedule has been rewritten by a better hand. The decisions you postponed during the dread season, the ones you could not make because your mind was too consumed with survival to process opportunity, those decisions are going to return to the table, clear, uncontaminated by fear, presented to a version of you that is no longer bracing for impact, but standing in the open air of a life that has been divinely cleared of incoming threats. You will make better decisions at peace than you ever could under dread. Provision that was held back during the transit of the letter is going to begin moving toward you now. Not because I was withholding it, because delivering a blessing into the middle of an active threat zone risks the blessing being consumed by the same damage the letter was carrying. I held your provision in a secure location until the interception was complete. The interception is complete, and the provision is now in transit, traveling the same route the letter would have taken, but carrying my handwriting instead of the enemy's. People are going to watch your life shift and search for the explanation they will never find. Because the letter was invisible, the interception was invisible, the dread was invisible, and the relief that is about to transform the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you enter rooms, the way you hold your future. That transformation will be visible to everyone, but traceable to no one. They will see the effect without seeing the cause. And the mystery of your sudden lightness will draw more attention than any announcement you could have made. Your peace is about to become your most powerful testimony. The relationships that absorbed the radiation of your dread season are going to heal. The people closest to you have been carrying a version of your tension without fully understanding where it originated. They felt the heaviness around you. They adjusted their behavior. They walked carefully near you because something in your atmosphere communicated fragility even when your words communicated strength. That atmospheric tension is dissolving now, and the people who love you are going to feel the shift before you explain it. Your atmosphere is clearing, and it is affecting everyone who stands inside it. Opportunities that require peace as a prerequisite are going to begin presenting themselves. There are doors that do not open for people carrying dread, not because dread disqualifies them morally, but because dread compromises the discernment needed to navigate what is on the other side. Certain blessings require a clear mind to steward, a calm spirit to manage, an unclenched hand to receive. Your hands are unclenching right now, and what they are about to receive fits perfectly in an open palm. Professional shifts, relational breakthroughs, financial openings that arrive with a quietness that matches the quietness of the interception itself. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just the steady, undeniable movement of a life that has been cleared of enemy mail and is now receiving only packages addressed in heaven's handwriting. The sender is still waiting for damage reports. They are going to wait forever. Type open hands if you can feel your fists unclenching for the first time in weeks, and you are ready to receive what God is delivering now that the enemy's letter has been permanently destroyed. I need you to understand why the enemy addressed that letter to you and not to someone else. Letters of this magnitude are not mass-produced. They are not generic threats distributed across a wide population, hoping to damage whoever happens to open them. What was written against you was custom correspondence, drafted with your specific vulnerabilities studied, your specific timing calculated, your specific relationships mapped, and your specific breaking points identified. That level of intelligence gathering does not happen against targets that do not matter. You were targeted because you are consequential. The enemy does not waste ink on people who pose no threat to his operation. He does not invest the effort of composing a multi-layered attack sequence against someone whose life has no strategic significance in the kingdom. The sophistication of the letter tells you everything you need to know about the value of the life it was aimed at. Your life warranted his best effort. Let that register. I chose you, not for the suffering, not for the dread, not for the exhausting weeks of carrying a weight you could not name, but for what lives inside you that the letter was trying to prevent from manifesting. There is something in your composition that the enemy identified as dangerous to his interests, something that, once fully activated, disrupts every system he has built in the territory surrounding your life. The letter was not written to hurt you. It was written to stop you, and that distinction matters because it reframes your entire identity. You are not a victim who was randomly selected for suffering. You are a threat who was strategically targeted for neutralization. The dread you carried was not the experience of someone God forgot to protect. It was the experience of someone so valuable that the enemy committed his most precise resources to preventing what God is about to release through them. I chose you because what I placed inside you cannot be replicated. The enemy knows that, which is why he did not send a general warning. He sent a personalized letter to a specific address, because the person at that address carries something that his kingdom cannot afford to see activated. Your activation is what the letter was trying to prevent, and the letter has been cancelled. The doubt that is circling your mind right now wears a very specific mask. It looks like realism. It sounds like this. That was a nice message, but my situation is still the same. Nothing has visibly changed. The circumstances that were producing the dread are still present. The people involved are still positioned where they were. The threat may have been spiritually cancelled, but the natural evidence has not caught up yet. And until it does, I cannot afford to let my guard down, because the last time I relaxed, something hit me that I was not prepared for. That is not wisdom. That is trauma dressed in logic. I need to separate two things for you. The letter and the circumstances are not the same thing. The circumstances are the environment. The letter was the weapon designed to use that environment against you. I cancelled the weapon. The environment may still look the same, but a battlefield without ammunition is just a field. The people and situations that were being leveraged against you are still visible, but the letter that was coordinating them into an attack sequence has been destroyed. The chess pieces are still on the board, but the player who was moving them just lost the game plan. And the fear that lowering your guard will invite a new attack, I need to address that directly. Your guard was never what protected you. I was. Your vigilance did not intercept the letter. My hand did. Your anxiety did not cancel the threat. My authority did. The protection was never dependent on the intensity of your worry. It was dependent on the faithfulness of your God. You can lower your guard without lowering your protection. Those are two completely different systems. Your guard is human, exhausting, limited, fueled by fear. Your protection is divine, tireless, unlimited, fueled by covenant. The guard can come down because the protection never does. And a life protected by God does not require a human alarm system running 24 hours a day to remain safe. The alarm can rest. The protection does not. Type protected if you are choosing right now to separate your guard from God's protection. Knowing that His hand is what cancelled the letter, not your worry, and you can finally stop carrying what was never yours to carry. While you were bracing for the letter, I was already holding it in my hand. The timeline of your dread and the timeline of my intervention do not match, and the mismatch is what caused so much of your suffering. You began dreading the threat weeks ago. You began losing sleep over it. You began rehearsing the damage. You began bargaining with me in the dark. Please do not let this happen. Please stop whatever is coming. Please move before it reaches me. I had already moved. Before the first prayer left your lips, the interception did not happen when you prayed hardest. It did not happen when your faith reached a critical threshold. It did not happen at the climax of some spiritual battle between your prayers and the enemy's plans. It happened the moment the letter entered the transit system, which was before you were even aware it had been written. My protection is not reactive. It is preemptive. I know this is difficult to reconcile with the weeks of dread you experienced. If the letter was already cancelled, why did the anxiety persist? Why did the fear feel so real? Why did the dread intensify instead of dissolving? Because your detection system is not connected to my interception system. You can sense a threat being sent without sensing that the same threat has been intercepted. And the gap between those two pieces of information is where all of your suffering lived. You were suffering in a gap that I was already standing in. Every night you spent afraid, I was already holding the cancelled letter. Every prayer you cried into the dark was received by a God who had already answered it before the words formed. Every scenario you rehearsed was a simulation of an event that was already erased from the schedule of your life. I was never late. I was never behind. I was never racing against the threat, trying to reach you before it did. I arrived at the interception point before the letter did, because the God who sees the end from the beginning does not react to threats. He preempts them. You were never in danger. You were in dread. And those are not the same thing. I know the specific threat you have been dreading, and I know it so precisely that naming it would make you weep with relief. You thought it was hidden. You thought the particular fear you have been nursing in the most private chamber of your mind was too specific, too personal, too uniquely yours for anyone, even God, to identify without being told. You never fully articulated it in prayer, because putting exact words to it felt like giving it permission to exist. So you prayed around it. You referenced it indirectly. You hinted at it in vague spiritual language, hoping I would understand the subtext without requiring you to speak the thing itself. I understood. I always understood. I know the name of the persons involved. I know the specific outcome you were terrified would materialize. I know the conversation you were afraid would happen, and the discovery you were afraid would be made, and the door you were afraid would close, and the call you were afraid would come. I know it with the precision of someone who read the letter before he cancelled it, because every detail of the threat you were dreading was written in the letter I now hold in my destroyed pile. Your most private fear was the letter's primary target, and it has been cancelled. I know the way your heart rate changes when your phone rings from a certain number. I know the specific email subject line that would have made your stomach drop. I know the scenario that plays in your mind during the 3 seconds between hearing unexpected news and processing what it means. I know the exact shape of the impact you were bracing for, not because you told me, but because I read every word the sender wrote before I destroyed it. Nothing in your fear is unknown to me, and nothing in the letter survived my hand. The God who knows the precise shape of what you were dreading is the same God who cancelled it with that same precision. I did not perform a general blessing over your life and hope it covered the specific threat. I identified the exact letter, read the exact contents, and executed the exact cancellation required to neutralize every word that was aimed at the exact thing you were most afraid of losing. Type "He knows" if God just described the specific fear you have never fully spoken out loud. And you are shaking right now, because only the one who read the letter could know what was written in it. Now that the letter has been cancelled, there is something I need you to do, and it is the opposite of everything the dread trained you to do. Stop checking the mail. The dread installed a habit in you, a compulsive scanning of the horizon for threats that became so automatic you no longer recognize it as a behavior. You do it constantly, checking your phone for bad news, refreshing your circumstances for signs of deterioration, interpreting every neutral event through the filter of what could go wrong, monitoring every relationship for evidence that the damage you feared is beginning to manifest. That habit was appropriate when the letter was in transit. It is destructive now that the letter is destroyed. Every time you scan the horizon for the threat, you are telling your nervous system the letter is still coming. Every time you interpret a neutral event through the lens of dread, you are reopening a case that heaven has permanently closed. Every time you brace for impact, you are rehearsing a collision that has been cancelled. And the rehearsal itself is now doing more damage than the letter ever could have, because the letter is gone. But the habit remains. The habit must be retired deliberately, starting today. When the impulse arrives, and it will arrive because habits do not dissolve overnight, I need you to intercept it the same way I intercepted the letter. Catch the thought mid-transit, identify it as outdated mail, and cancel it with the authority of someone who knows the threat no longer exists, because the God who cancelled it said so directly. Replace the scanning with receiving. Instead of checking for what might go wrong, begin positioning yourself for what is arriving. Instead of bracing for impact, begin opening your hands for delivery. Instead of rehearsing catastrophe, begin rehearsing the blessing that is now the only package in transit toward your address. The enemy trained your eyes to watch the horizon for his mail. I am retraining your eyes to watch the horizon for mine. And what I am sending requires hands that are open, a chest that is unclenched, and a mind that has officially retired from the full-time job of waiting for something terrible to arrive. You are no longer a threat monitor. You are a blessing receiver. Start living like it. You made it to the other side of the dread, and I need you to feel what it is like to stand in a life where the letter no longer exists. Feel the quiet, not the silence of something missing, the quiet of something resolved, the specific, tangible, almost physical stillness that enters a space when a threat has been permanently removed, and the air no longer vibrates with the frequency of approaching danger. Your atmosphere has changed, not because the world became safer, because the letter that was aimed at your specific coordinates has been destroyed by the specific hand of a God who refused to let it land. This quiet is not emptiness, it is safety. I want to thank you for something that the dread made impossible for you to recognize as courage. You continued to function. You continued to show up to your life. You continued to love people and make decisions and move through your days while carrying a weight that most people would have used as an excuse to shut down completely. You did not shut down. You carried the dread in one hand and your responsibilities in the other, and you walked forward with both. That was not anxiety. That was endurance under invisible fire. And now the hand that was carrying the dread is empty. Feel how light it is. Feel how strange it is to have a free hand after weeks of carrying something you could not set down. That hand is available now, not for more dread, but for receiving, for building, for reaching toward the things you were too burdened to touch while the weight of the unnamed threat was consuming your grip. Let the gratitude settle in slowly. Do not rush it. Do not force an emotional response that your exhausted system is not yet ready to produce. Just stand in the quiet of a life that has been cleared of incoming danger, and let your body recalibrate to an environment where the only thing approaching your door carries your name in my handwriting. You are safe. The letter is gone, and the God who cancelled it is not leaving your side. Type safe now if you are standing in a quiet you have not felt in weeks, and for the first time you believe it is real because the God who intercepted the letter just confirmed it with his own voice. You are not the person who pressed play on this message, carrying a nameless dread they could not shake. That person was bracing for impact. That person was living inside the shadow of a letter they could not see, but could feel approaching with every passing hour. That person had quietly accepted that something terrible was going to reach them, and the only question was when. That person was exhausted from carrying the weight of an unopened envelope that their spirit detected, but their mind could not process. That person just discovered the envelope was destroyed before it ever reached the door. You are no longer someone waiting for the worst to arrive. You are someone standing in the confirmed aftermath of a divine interception, holding the receipt of a cancellation signed by the only authority in existence that has jurisdiction over what reaches you and what does not. The dread has no object. The fear has no target. The alarm has no signal, because the letter that generated all three has been permanently removed from the delivery system of your life. You are not dreading anymore. You are cleared. From this moment forward, you carry a different identity. Not the identity of someone who worries about what is coming. The identity of someone whose mail is monitored by God himself. Every letter screened, every threat intercepted, every delivery that does not carry divine authorization, remove before it reaches the doorstep. You do not have to scan the horizon anymore. You do not have to brace for midnight phone calls, or rehearse catastrophic scenarios, or carry the low hum of unnamed anxiety that has been your constant companion for weeks. The companion has been dismissed, and it has been replaced by a presence that does not generate dread, but dissolves it. You are covered. You are cleared. You are held by a God who cancels what is coming against you before you finish asking him to. And no letter, no threat, no plan, no scheme, no weapon formed in the darkness and sent toward your life will ever reach the door of someone whose mail is personally handled by the living God. It is already done. It was done before you knew it needed to be done. And the hand that cancelled it will never stop monitoring the route. Subscribe to this channel so that every time God intercepts something aimed at your life, his message of confirmation reaches you the moment the cancellation is complete. You are not someone who receives the enemy's mail anymore. You are someone whose address is marked in heaven as permanently protected. The next message is already being written for you, and it carries news of what is arriving now that the threat has been cleared. Type already done if you are leaving this message with the dread completely gone, knowing that what was coming against you has been cancelled. What God is sending toward you is unstoppable, and you will never again have to carry the weight of a letter that was destroyed before it ever reached your hands.